Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys. This is your channel for photography, for wildlife, and for wildlife photography. And I got a great video. I'm going to talk about the Nikon Z6 III. And is it a wildlife and is it a bird photography capable camera? I'm going to give you my honest opinion about it right after this. Now, when I review something like a camera body, there's a lot of information. I'm gonna do this in sections. So I'm gonna give you an overview right off the bat of what I'm looking for. I'm gonna do a summary at the end. So if at any point you don't want all of the detail, you can skip through to the end. I'll give you the overall summary, kind of a grading, like a scorecard. And I'm gonna give you my opinion on, is this a wildlife capable body? Knowing that its primary use probably isn't perfect for wildlife, but is it capable? I've got a lot of illustrations in here. I've got some camera clips captured through my camera. I've got lots of images. I've got final products. So the video itself, it might get a little lengthy in parts, but if you like that detail, stay tuned, because this is the Practical Wildlife channel. I'm going to show it to you. Yeah, a lot of talking head type videos, they're going to tell you, I use this camera and it's great. Go down and check out my links. And you really have to trust their opinion, but are they showing you actual real life stuff? I had this camera for well over 30 days. I took it out in the field probably 8 times. I'm going to show you samples of those outings in here. And I'm going to show you some videos, some final output, and we're going to talk about all of these factors. But let me put the factors we're going to look at. This is the scorecard. Now, I did a video on this scorecarding. These are the things that I look for in order for a wildlife camera. You may agree with it, you may disagree with it. I did a video that explains it. Let's not critique my list. If you want to critique my list, go over and see the video that I did on this one. You can critique all you want over there, but let's keep the comments really focused around the Z6 III for this one. I'm going to go through each of these and provide a score for it. I'll summarize it at the end. And then under each score, I'm going to reinforce it with why. Let's start with my number one factor up here, and that's autofocus. Now, as we talk about things like autofocus and resolution and image size, there's going to be a lot of illustrations and a lot of images to show you. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this because this is where people really get concerned sometimes with the capabilities of a wildlife camera, is how accurately can it autofocus. I'll show you some still images first, then I'm going to take you through my camera and show you actual recording of this. I'm going to grade it out for you right now, though. I'm going to give it a B. It is not as good as the Z9 that I use. It is better, much better than the Z6 II. I found it to be very, very capable. Let me run over, I'll pull up another screen here. So I took this out and I went in my backyard. I have some controlled, I call these feeder shots, all right? This is my bird pool. One day I had a couple migrants come in and jump in. I got all excited. This is the size of that image in the frame. And if we were to look, and I'll zoom in every now and then, okay? Sharp. That's 100%. Each of these clicks is going to go down to 100%, right? Sharp. So right away we're thinking, okay, the autofocus right on the eye is doing pretty good. You'll see more of this as I do some of these videos. So a whole sequence of these. I have some polished images. I edited a few of these. I'll show you at the end. But you can see each of these. I am randomly selecting, all right? I could hit one that's a little out of focus. I told you the focus on this, you'll see it in the videos, was good. It was very, very good. It does not include, with its initial release, bird tracking. So it has an animal tracking feature. I gotta believe this is a firmware update. I can't tell you, I'm not an engineer, software engineer. It's got the same sensor. It's got a partially stacked sensor, similar sensor to the Z9. It's got the same processor as the Z9. The speed on this is very, very good. If you watch my pros and cons video, I told you the speed on this is really the highlight. How fast it can move data is pretty impressive. I gotta believe it's capable of doing a bird tracking through a firmware update. I think that'll help a lot. You'll see that in a minute. So anyway, these were some feeder shots. I did another set of feeder shots out here. This time I had a squirrel. I'll show you this in the video. You'll see my little squirrel friend out here. And then we'll jump in every now and then. Again, I know it's hard to see on YouTube. Put this up on the highest resolution, by the way. Go down to the gearbox on YouTube. Make sure it's at, I think 2144 is where I try to stream out at. It's a decent resolution for this. You should be able to see this. I have some finished images of this blue jay, so I'll show you an edit I did. Just trust me, guys. This is sharp, and I'm right on the eye. These subjects, by the way, are about 25 feet away, full frame, nothing edited. This is right out of camera. There's a couple things I would point out if this was another video about backgrounds and foregrounds and all that, but I'm resisting the temptation to teach about actual photography, which is my real passion about the field work that goes behind it. But this is sharp, guys. Everything here is sharp, all right? So this is out. I mean, this is a tough, it doesn't look like a tough photo, but it's tough because the eyes of these nuthatches are really small and there's a hard line right here. Often cameras want to focus on that hard line and not the subject. These cameras work off of contrast. So when an area looks really contrasty, I got a great example of this coming up. It can be a little challenging. Let me run through a very few like images from out in the field. Now these are going to be all over the place. This is randomly just shot out in the field. Here I'm up on a mountain. It looks like I got a Vireo on this one. Oh, this was a cute little fella. Little common yellowthroat came in. Focus looked pretty good here. And again, I'm just randomly scrolling. That one looked a hair off. Not bad. Pretty solid. You can see I'm just taking lots of photos. Oh, so many photos. Okay, this one, little smaller in frame. I think I did end up editing this one up, but tracking looks pretty good here. So these are real images in the frame. I got a little house wren. I edited this really sharp image. That one came out really nice. The focus on that, I know because I actually detailed and looked through there. So this was just some field work. I'll give you another day real quick here. A tougher day, overcast. I'll show you an edited of this series, and you'll see it anywhere on this series. This bird is close, guessing 12, 14 feet, maybe 10. So this is about 400 millimeters. That's about as close as you're gonna get to a warbler, and everything on this one's tack sharp. So I'm using a really good lens for this. A couple others in here, got a little black-throated green warbler, really sharp. So you can see, I'm pretty pleased with what it's doing. As conditions got tougher, all right, and you can see this is all backlit now. As conditions got tougher, it got a little bit harder. Let me go through, I got a couple more days here. It's super sharp. This is not an image I will edit. The light's just no good for me, but it looks like a baby Carolina wren. Kind of cute, but it is, trust me when I tell you, definitely got the eye, definitely sharp. And these are all just random. I'm just going through the day, picking out images. I don't even think I culled these or did anything. I think I just literally downloaded the card and said, let me show you what I was able to achieve. So you can see lighting's not ideal. I'll show you some of these edits, but I just wanted to take you in the field and you could see the vast majority. Now this one's soft because the leaf is in the way. I can tell you eventually I got focus on this guy here. This was really tough conditions. The lights, there, really sharp. So tough conditions. It's finding the eye. Let's go to the video. I'm gonna pull up some video. It's gonna be a little challenging with this. So let me switch my views again. And again, this is all around autofocus. It's one of my #1 features I look for in a camera. Different, in the old days, I didn't think it was as big a deal, honestly. I thought most cameras autofocused about the same. With mirrorless cameras and tracking, you do see a significant difference in a camera's ability to track based off of the sensor, the speed of it, how fast it can process that information and keep tracking that subject through the frame. So it is different. All right, I'm gonna pull up a movie here. Let me just pull this up real quick. Squirrel, it is an easy subject. I mean, it's a squirrel, it's almost filling the frame. It's 15, 10 feet away, and I'm right on the eye. Notice it grabs the eye, and you can see me moving through the frame, all right? I'm doing this intentionally. When I compose in camera, I use this 3D tracking that the Z6 III has, which is really, really nice. Some of the other prosumer or consumer models don't have 3D tracking. You can see it followed it, no problem. I'm then shooting the little birds on the feeder. I think the squirrel actually tries to come back here, and as he jumps back up on the stick, I see him down there, and same thing. I mean, this isn't a huge challenge, but I wanted to show you, since it's a wildlife video, what is its capabilities here for tracking subjects. And in this case, big eye, easy to find, tracks it no problem, and I can do the 3D tracking through the frame. Let's show you what happened with some tougher subjects. So let's go up to the feeder now. I just use a little tray feeder up here, and you'll see a couple birds come into the feeder. They're coming real fast. They just grab a seed and take off. So this is a red-bellied woodpecker. You could see it grabbing it, a couple other birds around. Not too shabby. All right, not too bad on that one. We go back to the feeder. I got the blue jay on the feeder. I showed you some pictures of this because I did take some stills. And this is the auto tracking. You can see it bopping in and on the eye. Now, it's tough when it grabs it. You saw it grab the leaf. I'm trying to get back. You're going to notice right here. Let me just stop that for a second. You're going to notice the focus changed. It went to a red circle and it had that dot in the middle. That's really what I'm looking for. When that dot goes in the middle, I have switched my focus points from 3D to single. And I'm doing that to get off of the leaf and back onto the subject. Now, this is a little bit of just of a field technique, but assigning buttons to specific focus points, depending on your style. I'm not going to do a video about this today, but depending on your style can be helpful. I find this to be helpful when there's an obstruction or something in the way and the focus wants to stay on the nearer object and I'm trying to get through it. That single point focus will give me a little bit better opportunity. And there you saw it just grab real quick. Of course, he took off after I grabbed him. You're seeing what it does. It's a very fair evaluation watching these videos, by the way. These little quick feeder videos are pretty accurate. You'll see birds coming in and out. They're fast. You'll see it grab the eye, and then you'll see it, fly off. I'll try to get another one, fly off. And it's pretty good. You can see occasionally it wanted to grab the foreground, but it was pretty good. These aren't terrible situations. Let me show you a pretty good example of what happened when a specific bird came in, and this is a house finch. And the house finch was very, very streaky. And as he came in, the contrast detect, watch this, the contrast detect actually picks up his breast. So while I said it doesn't have animal tracking, I don't know if that would have helped in this situation. It grabbed the nuthatch's eye, and then it went right onto this pattern. And it kind of got stuck, and I'm trying to get off the pattern. I get onto the background. Once it grabbed the eye, once he's profiled, the eye's clear, I'm in good shape. And then I can move this camera. That 3D tracking worked really well. Not a lot of obstructions here. So as long as he was in this position. But what I found is when birds turned their back or gave me something more contrasty or a foreground subject came into play, sometimes that auto tracking wasn't spot on. And you saw that with the nuthatch there. It kind of grabbed the body, not the eye. Look at all these birds. These titmouse are just going crazy. And there you go. That one did grab the eye. All right. Let's get into the real field now. This one's going to be a little bit more challenging, but let me show you just a couple of super quick videos. This happened very, very fast. Keep in mind, I'm going to pause this for a second, but keep in mind, I'm on a mountain. I've got a 400mm lens. I've got my external recorder on there. I'm hand holding it because this is my real life. Like, this is what I do. I did not have a great morning. There weren't a lot of birds. The ones that were there, I ended up with kinglets, which are fast moving. A lot of leaves because it was late autumn. Bear with me on this. It's going to move quick. I don't want to get you motion sickness on this, but I had the first one that pops in here is a black-throated green. And just notice, I mean, it's going to happen fast, but just notice that I grab him just for a second. He doesn't stay there long. I was on single shutter release, by the way. Should not have been. I should have been on high, but I was testing some other stuff at the time, and I was doing a lot of testing. But you can see me trying to track him. He's gone. Then I get into this little kinglet that pops in, and I go to that single point. So you see it grabs through all those leaves with the single point. I'm just not going to be able to get him here, guys. It's too much to ask really any camera to focus on these situations. I don't know anybody that's going to get that one. I did, however, hear something below me. So I had a junco, and this will be my last example out in the field. There he is. So I go down to get him, and I get the eye, fair, but he turns his back, and here's where it just kind of struggles, and I think most cameras are struggling. I don't have an eye to lock onto. And I'm hand holding. When he turned right there and gave me the eye, it locked on for a second. Then his head was away from me again, and that was it. So I didn't really get a lot of choices. Here's what I found. I tested a lot of this at the feeder because it was controlled. I did test this out in the field. I didn't record all of it. I showed you some still images. Looked good. All right, I'm spending a lot more time on the autofocus. The rest of this is going to go pretty quick. But a lot of people are concerned about this autofocus. It is very, very good overall. Not great in really tough conditions, but I'm not sure how much better my Z9 would have performed. And I think that's got the best autofocus, certainly of any Nikon camera. One of the best autofocuses on the market. So I told you I rated this a B, showed you a lot of examples in here. I'll move a little quicker through my list now. But I think that's a very fair evaluation of the autofocus on this. Let's get back to our list now, and I'm going to show you what I think to be the second most important thing, and that's resolution. Now, resolution's resolution. I don't have to show you a whole lot of examples of this. I will, however, I'm going to pull up one thing just to kind of give you a comparison on resolution and what that looks like. 24 megapixels is a little small. I graded this a C. At 30 megapixels, I'm looking at probably a B, provided image quality is the same. And at 45 megapixels, I'm probably giving it an A. There's a limit to how much resolution. This isn't a video about resolution, but there's a limit to how much is good. But for a bird photographer and for a wildlife photographer, you are probably going to want more resolution. So resolution, probably the weakest part of this in terms of its applications for wildlife. One of the things about the resolution, the lower resolution gives you the ability to move data faster, and it gives you better video capabilities, especially around slow motion. So just know that there's some good and bad around the resolution. I'll show you some of the good in just a second. I'm going to pull up two images here. Flip my view back here. Both of these shot with the same, there's a little bit of movement here. This is the Z6 at 6,000 pixels wide, 24 megapixels. This is the Z9 at 45 megapixels. I'm going to round these up. All right. So a little over 8,000 pixels wide. I'll flash back and forth. We'll talk about image quality in a minute. I may even bring these two back. 24 megapixels. Now, what does that mean? Like, what does that do for a wildlife photographer? It gives me the ability to crop. So I'm going to show you two images real quick, side by side. The first, these are cropped to 3,000 pixels tall. That's the first one. I just want you to notice the difference when cropped. That's the second one. Don't worry about the image quality or anything else on this. I just picked two frames. Not even sure I picked the sharpest two frames of each, but this is just about resolution and size when cropped. So you see the competitive advantage that more resolution has, right? I just get a tighter shot at the same width and height. So 3,000 pixels tall. Go one more time. Z6 III cropped to 3,000. Z9 cropped to 3,000. So you just have the ability to crop a little bit deeper. Now there's more going on when we get to image quality. Maybe I'll reference these images one more time for this video, but that's all I'm going to talk about with video resolution. You guys know what resolution is, 24 megapixels versus maybe 30 or 45. Not ideal, probably one of its biggest drawbacks. I want to talk about frame rate real quick. For frame rate, I don't need pictures or charts. I'm just going to tell you what it is. It's an A. This gives you, 20 frames per second raw. You get up to 120 JPEG. Super, super fast. I told you one of the advantages of a smaller sensor is the ability to move fast. So it's got an ACE processor. You got to check out my pros and cons video. I list everything about this camera in there. So I put some of the basic specs up there early in this video, but this is more about, is it for wildlife? And these are the things that I'm looking at for wildlife. Frame rate's an A. It's outstanding. And along with that is the buffer size. How many images can I continuously shoot before it slows down or starts to freeze up? I can call it an A because it's virtually unlimited if you've got the right card in there. You need a faster card. You can get throttled or bottlenecked by the card you're using. So if you're using a slow card, you get worse performance. But just the buffer, even with a bad card, it starts to put a ton of information into the camera before it even bothers to start writing. Like just a buffer is huge. So I'm going to call this virtually unlimited buffer. So if you're a wildlife photographer and an action photographer, frame rate, huge plus, buffer size, huge plus. You could just shoot tons and tons of images and you almost never have to worry about it running out of space. So those I'm going to rate as an A. Image quality. First of all, a lot of people are going to say you got image quality all the way down there. Image quality on most sensors in modern cameras is always acceptable with any, and I'm talking about good bodies. I'm not comparing this to point and shoots. I'm talking about DSLRs, mirrorless, prosumer and above bodies, which is what this is geared at. Whether you're shooting a Z6, a Z6 II, a Z7, a Z9, a Z8, and for Nikon, whether you shoot a D500, a D850, a D700, if I took all of these bodies and put a good piece of glass on it, I'm telling you, if I resized them, you wouldn't be able to tell me which was shot with which, unless you were just absolutely pixel peeping. If I printed them, You can't tell me which camera produced which image based off of a print. So maybe I'm exaggerating just a hair, but I do believe in this theory that every image sensor on today's modern market is capable and is going to produce great images. It's much more dependent on the glass. With that said, there's two things I want to talk about. The image quality I find to be very good. If you read on this, dynamic range is where it gets kicked. So it's got a lower dynamic range. I did a video about dual gain sensors. I talked about this with this sensor. It's got a dual gain point of 800, which helps it in higher ISO situations. In lower ISO, it's got a much more limited dynamic range than some other cameras. Practically speaking, what does that matter? I'm the practical wildlife photographer. Practically speaking, it's not a ton unless you're in really tough conditions. Scenes with really bright areas and strong shadows in the same scene is where you would notice this. I showed you a couple examples, and I'll show you one at the end that I edited where the lighting was tough. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. But I was still able to produce an image out of it, even in really, really, really tough lighting. So when we talk about image quality, I rated a B, mostly around dynamic range, limited dynamic range. There's other videos that are just going to talk about this camera in dynamic range because it's like the number one drawback with this camera. And tied into that is low light performance. I actually found low light performance to be pretty good overall. So I didn't have a problem at ISO 6400. In fact, I'm going to run back. I'll pull up two images. I had these images over here from before. Let me pull these up. Remember this, I showed you when we were talking about resolution. This is the Z6, this is the Z9. These are at ISO 6400 each. So this is about the limit for me. Once I get higher than ISO 6400, I just find the image quality suffers a little bit too much for my liking. So I'm kind of limited at 6400. This is like my threshold. If this was a lower light situation at ISO 64, what would the noise look like? There's better examples of this, but just bear with me. I'm going to put a filter up that shows the noise on each image. So there's one, that's a Z6 III noise, but you could see not a ton of difference, and maybe this one even looks better. That's 800 ISO Z6 III, and then let me go down to 800 ISO Z9. So Z9, Z6 III at 864 ISO. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. You just have to trust me when I say low light performance on this, not bad at all. So I gave it a B. I gave the image quality a B because I actually think the image quality is pretty good outside of the dynamic range limitations, and I know that's a big part of image quality. Maybe it's a B minus, but not bad. Not bad. And if you're in a traditional scene with pretty even light, you're not going to notice it at all. The image quality is going to be more than acceptable. Last two things, I talked about stabilization. I'm giving that an A. It's got in-body stabilization, which I found to work really well for still images. No problems with stabilization. And the last one was the video capabilities. So even though the video is a little bit more around still images, I found the video capabilities to overall be pretty solid. Now, I told you I would show you some of my work. So some of the work that I produced with this camera and a few of the edits. So what I'm going to do is jump back one last time, and I'm going to go over, I just have to pull up the screen. I have so many screens open for this video, guys. I try not to script my videos. I just like to talk. I just like to show the audience and be genuine with these presentations. So in the field, I told you I had some tougher conditions I wanted to show you. Here we've got bright spots in the back. A camera with better dynamic range may perform slightly better overall than this. Here's the image when I balance things out. Okay, so that was one of my tough lighting condition images. This is another one, that's the right out of camera, much more balanced light. Really, really pretty image, by the way. Common yellow throat on goldenrod. The edit looks a little like that. I showed you earlier some feeder images. So these are the final results of that. This one cropped quite a bit. I wanted to show this to you because I cropped this under 3,000 pixels wide, which is breaking my 3,000 pixel rule. In my head, I have a 3,000 pixel rule. I cropped it even tighter than that because I wanted to see what the detail looked like, and the detail was very, very good. So the detail on this one, really, really good. I had a couple, I showed you a common yellow throat, or I'm sorry, I showed you a yellow warbler perched in my yard. This wasn't my favorite of that, but it's a pretty good example. This one cropped to about 3,000 pixels. You could just see very even, very nice, details really good. I know this doesn't all translate through YouTube. A couple more on the tough side. Tough image in that it was backlit, decided to go silhouette with this and really just play up that sunrise. So an image I like, not tough in the way that I had to pull up the shadows. Shadows would have been really, really tough to pull up on this image. Fairly even light on this one. I showed you the detail. I've cropped these down already for social media, so this is already resized pretty small, but the detail on this really, really exceptional. Just really great feather detail around the eyes. I shoot these in low light, and I shoot them often at slower shutter speeds, 1/100th, 1/200th of a second, and I shoot them at a wide open aperture of 2.8. All of that together is not ideal for great feather detail. Little slower shutter. My aperture is wide open, so I'm getting a very narrow depth of field. So I'm very pleased to see that it focused dead on the eye, which it has to, and that I got the really nice feather detail in there. One more tough one, shooting birds in flight. When you shoot birds in flight in a really bright sky, you often have to make decisions. I did a Patreon video on this edit. And one of the things was, I know I'm in these conditions. I have some choices to make. I can blow out the sky and expose the bird in camera. I can expose the sky and keep the bird dark in camera. And I play around with this, but I really do. I had some clouds in the sky. You could see the texture. I wanted to preserve that. So I didn't want a white background. So I make some choices in camera to try to keep my ISO really, really low so that I can play around with it in post-processing. And look at all the detail that came back. And again, the knock on this one is dynamic range. You're not going to be able to pull up the shadows as much as with some of the other cameras. All that can be true, yet I can still produce and still push these edits pretty aggressively when needed. So one of the reasons I thought, I hedged on this image quality. Do I want to give this it's certainly not an A. Do I want to give it a B or a C? And I just thought, probably a B is fair. Like the dynamic range limitations, yes, they're there, they're true. Like, did I nail these ratings? This is my, I'll put some cards down here or chapters you can skip to. This is my ratings right here. So if you skip to the end of this video, here's what I'm going to tell you. Is it a primary wildlife lens? Maybe. It's not a primary bird lens. So if you're in the market for a Z8 or Z9, if you can swing that money for a Z8 and you just do birds, do it. It is a capable bird lens, and it is a very capable wildlife, especially if you do larger subjects where you may not need to crop, the resolution isn't as much a factor. Yeah, I could see this. I have always said this in my pros and cons video, who's this for? If this is your backup wildlife lens or backup bird lens, don't feel bad. You're going to get a lot of good stuff out of the video. Like if you do video at all, you're going to get a lot of good out of there. If you're a content creator, it's got some huge wins there. The autofocus, super. The frame rate, super. The buffer, super. The speed of the camera is super. So it does a lot of really good wildlife things. Downside for wildlife for me, especially as a bird photographer, resolution, I'd like a little more megapixels. And that idea around the dynamic range and image quality, I'd feel better if it was a little bit better. If this was a 36 megapixel camera and everything else was the exact same on this, I would say this could absolutely 100% be your primary bird photography camera. Hope they add some firmware in there, some updates to get that tracking a little bit tighter. Really want to see that bird feature, that bird focus feature as part of their standard for this body. Right now it's not. I think it's coming in firmware down the road, but that's my video. Is it a wildlife camera? I'd say could be. It's absolutely a backup wildlife camera. Is it a bird primary camera? Probably not your best bird camera out of Nikon's lineup, but it is a very, very capable camera. If you've got video interest, think about it, especially as a backup camera. And that's my video for you today. This was a long one, guys. When I get into details, I really like to show the examples. I hope I made the points with this one. Hope my scorecard is accurate for you. If you don't find it that way, let me know down in the comments. If you have any concerns, I read every comment, but I'll try to answer your questions. So give me a thumbs up on the video. subscribe to the channel. That's the most important thing. I got so many playlists down there with different genres of wildlife themes, opinion pieces, gear reviews, just a lot down there. So check out the playlist. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. It's my video for you today. It was a long one. And as always, I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.